we've done at Archer. About a year ago when Dr. Rollins invited me to his office and we started talking about taking over ALE and moving it in a new direction, a lot of thoughts came to mind. How do you begin when you have 7% of your kids scoring proficient in literacy or 14% of your kids scoring proficient in math? First thing you've got to do is do a quick system analysis, see what do we need to do to get on track. And a few slides that I wanted to address, and we're brief on time. And by the way, this logo is not official, but one of our kids designed this, and I'm very proud of that. And it goes back to that sense of family with our kids. Some things that we did, and I'm kind of speaking through the lens of a principal for a moment, some high impact things. First of all, having teachers submit lesson plans to me daily. I checked 2,440 lesson plans last year. They knew that I was going to do it, and they turned them in, they posted them. High expectations for teachers, connected to the frameworks, showing formative assessments, showing cooperative activities that they were using, and then giving them a chance to reflect. I had no problems with teachers telling me the thing bombed, but it's the reflection. Get better at it. Be honest with yourself. The second thing is having a common planning period for our teachers in math, first period, second period English, and so on. Giving them the opportunity to come together and just talk. And then we're going to go into the PLCs in a moment, but that was a high priority, giving our teachers, who many of them were very green, the opportunity to sit and learn from each other. The third is having high expectations. You know, you think about ALE, sometimes you get that stereotype of what are they doing down there? But again, you look back at that original logo that our kids designed, there's a lot of pride that these kids have. And having high expectations for them, being visible, it starts with, you know, the principal, the teacher, and it doesn't take long before kids realize that they're there to learn, and when they have that sense of achievement, it's contagious. And then another piece, and I challenge all of you, when I hired a lit coach and a math coach, I didn't hire somebody just to fill the spot. I wanted them to get their hands just as dirty, if not more dirty than I do, with data, with kids, with teachers. And Ms. Roland has done a fantastic job serving in that capacity. So again, having the right person in place to focus on the achievement. So here's where we are. This was Archer last year. We had 70% of our kids that were free or reduced lunch, 40% were ELL learners, and 80% of these kids scored basic or below basic on the 8th grade benchmark. So that's what we knew. What did we go from there? Here's the data that you can see. We went from 10%, this is algebra, 10% in 2010, 18%, 21%. Our state goal last year was about 29%. And you can see we had 72% of our kids score proficient or advanced. And our tag kids outperformed our non-tag kids, which to me, you know. And then we look at geometry, 8, 14, 4, same AMO, but you know, you look at 61% of our kids scored proficient or advanced in geometry and 56% with our tag kids. So again, it can be done, and Kathy's going to talk about the nuts and bolts of what we did in math.
Do I need the mic over here?
I can click for you.
Okay. All right. This is absolutely exciting to me to get the opportunity to tell y'all what we did. Because there's one thing that we are and is passionate about the math and about helping the kids succeed in math. And that passion is contagious to your kids. The first thing we did is, and set the stage a little bit, our teachers didn't teach. They were on Odyssey. So I had to take them from really not ever teaching in the classroom to ready, and we started with problem posing. I had the very first PLC where I kind of introduced the concept of problem posing. Well, none of them had been through CGI training, and so we did it a kind of introductory way. The first math PLC, we went with a lesson that was, we got to teach these kids how to problem solve. Well, what do they know? You get locked out of a house. So we posed the problem, you get locked out of the house. We had them write down their answers, and we got all kinds of resistance, and there was a process, and we had talked through it, and I'd modeled this with my teachers. Okay, so they come up the list, and they're going to bash down the front door, and they're going to break windows, and all kinds. They're going to wait 5 hours for mom to get home. So then we went to, okay, let's think about the consequences involved with the different things that you choose. Okay, so if you do this, what's the effect? So the kids went back through their list and said, well, if I did this, this is the effect. Well, what do we want to eliminate as a possibility? Well, then in that problem, we went through and said, okay, let's change a variable in the story. What if there is a baby locked in that house under distress? Does it change anything that you're going to do? So we changed the variable in the story. Had the kids work through that. And at the same time, we worked through teaching them the procedures. What do we want you to do as you solve problems? We want you to write down all your work. We want you to show all your steps. And so we worked through those procedures. So they didn't mind doing this. It wasn't math. So that's great. But what we're doing is teaching problem solving. And that was where we had to start the year. And that's where we did start the year. Then the next thing we did was we changed the kind of problems that we used. We got high interest problems. And I won't belabor this, but I just had to show y'all this. This is the way we started this year. The mullet ratio problem. And the kids just absolutely loved it. And it goes in here. Just how mullety is it? Okay? And so then you go up here and you say, okay, this is the warm-up. Which is a better mullet and why? We're not telling them how to solve the problem. We're getting them to solve the problem the way they want to, right? So then we move on down here a little bit and we say, what is a mullet? How do you define a mullet? Okay, which one's more mullety? Okay, let's go for the mullet ratio. We got the business and the party. Okay, so we'll look at that. Well, let's teach a little. They don't know we're teaching math. What's a ratio? Right? And went in. Okay, now let's look at units of measure. What do we got here? Okay, we got hairsprays and flaming guitars and pixie farts. So, we have units. You can just imagine how this group of kids is engaged in this math lesson. Right? Okay, so then we go on down. And we have a worksheet, if you may. No, a data sheet that we collected the data as we worked through it. Then we accumulated the data, and then we discussed the data. They defined what made the best mullet. So there's all this different data. We took the data from these classes, we fed it into our statistics class, and our statistics class took all of this data and did statistics on it. So that's the way we opened this year. Again, doing problem solving, getting the kids engaged. So I just wanted to share that with y'all because I just love that. And anyways, so the next thing we did to change was we focused on the 8 mathematical principles. The beginning of the year, August. These are professional teachers. I didn't need to teach them how to teach. But the mathematical practices were new, and that is the core of Common Core. And they needed to understand those, and they needed to understand how to do that. So every time, every PLC, we talked about practices. How are we including practices? What do they really mean? We had common assessments. We brought back common assessment data to our PLCs, and we looked at it. And we identified what went well, what didn't. Okay, for the teachers that had kids that did well, how did you teach that? The ones that didn't, why are the kids struggling? What concept do they not get? We shared that information. And then throughout the entire year, we identified students that needed Title I tutoring. And so we didn't wait until right before test. We didn't wait until right before the end of the year to get Title I tutoring underway. We did it from the beginning. Our units were designed with EOC release items. And what I mean by that, we had pulled out the strands of EOC release items, and after every unit, we gave a benchmark test to see if, okay, we've taught this unit, how would they do on the EOC, the strands for this? And so, we did that for the entire year after each unit. We analyzed the results. What we're calling the unmastered content was retaught. Our final exam in December was EOC questions, both multiple choice and open response, okay? all of the classes gave the same one. We had the data, we could analyze it, we could share what worked, what didn't work. Students were classified by EOC outcomes. I basically said, people, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but let's look at these criteria, let's think what we're gonna do, how we think they're gonna do, and we identified target kids. Target students received very intense one-on-one tutoring. Okay. 2 weeks prior to the EOC, we had another benchmark test, items, did the same thing. This one we broke out by strands. And we looked at the individual strands and said, okay, what strands are we not getting? Because we got 2 weeks left. And then during those last 2 weeks, those strands that we weren't getting, we hit hard. We re-identified our target kids, and we gave intense tutoring. Establishing productive PLCs. Kind of the foundation of making this thing work was the PLC. And to establish the PLC, I really sat back and said, how do I want this to develop? And what I figured out was it had to evolve. And it had to evolve basically through the GIR model. So the very initial phase, before school started, inventoried my math teachers, and I really saw where they were and what their strengths and weaknesses were. I spent the first 2 months of school serving them. What do you need? What do you need? Understanding their needs, serving them. I wrote their pacing guides. I wrote their syllabi. You know, I did all this stuff. I made their copies for them. You know, I served them because they were overwhelmed, okay? But that gave us the ability that as we got back, as we were focusing on things in PLC, we could talk about what was working, what wasn't working. We didn't have to get bogged down into all those details they couldn't get done, okay? Then we started establishing a culture of sharing student results. You know, started doing that. The developing phase, I released the unit planning, all of that stuff to my teachers, you know, so it went on out to them, and I really started focusing on the common assessment data, okay? So I've changed my focus, and I've gone to the common assessment data. We continually talked about what worked, what didn't work in the classroom. I'm using so many different ways to do this. Let me get caught up with myself. I brought some copies of my PLC meeting minutes so you could kind of see the evolution. The mature phase of the PLCs did not require very much leadership. I basically did an agenda. Everyone knew what they were doing. Everyone knew what we were going to analyze. They showed up. They discussed. It was their PLC. And so it was, but I wanted to, you know, this is August 23rd. Okay, our student data, this is all we had to go with. I shared TIA documents. We talked about common assessments, how we were going to use them. We reviewed common Kagan strategies, math resources. We toured the room, the procedures, problem posing. August 23rd, we're talking about problem posing. Calculator inventory, all those little needs things. Then, September 5th, resource allocation. I got them the NCTM books. So we're starting to get into Common Core, trying to equip them a little bit. We'd already taken a common assessment in algebra. And so we discussed that data, tried to figure out what worked and what didn't work. We talked about engagement strategies, and teachers were really challenged with getting kids engaged. So I had a teacher that was really able to do that, and so he shared with everybody what his engagement strategies were. Okay, now we're moving on. Now we're ready to come up to a little bit higher level thinking, if you may, but how can I use formative and summative assessment data to drive and improve instruction? How can I use dashboard data? So now we're expanding our data and we're looking at it a little bit more carefully. We're looking at open response problems. How do we teach them how to do it, the procedures? How do we evaluate them? And then by here, how do I use data to drive student instruction? And so we really worked step by step. We met their needs for the details that they needed for confidence, okay? The main message I want to tell you is productive PLCs don't happen by accident. It is a very strategically planned event, okay? Okay, they learn from each other. One story I want to tell you about real quick is one of our teachers that noticed, he had a lot of ELLs. He said, I finally figured it out. Okay, they come back on Monday after having spoken their native language all weekend long, and all the math language I taught them last week is gone. And if I don't address this on Monday, I struggle with it all week long. So he learned, first thing Monday morning, he readdresses the language issue. Okay? It significantly improved his class. We talked about the importance of the EOC and how it relates to them. This is the students, them taking ownership and them being personally motivated to succeed. We met in groups of test takers at each campus. We discussed the state requirements. Well, as y'all know, the state threw us a curveball on algebra and changed the passing criteria right before it was all happened. We didn't even address that one. What we said is, if you don't pass, you're going to have to be remediated, which means more math. So passing means don't be remediated, and we did not tell them passing was proficient, but we inferred it, okay? So we're not going to have basic passing. Passing is proficient, okay? We discussed student success stories. We had a young lady last year that had failed the EOC 3 or 4 times. We went through a process with her. We intense tutored. I think she might have scored the highest online score that's ever been scored. She was advanced. That young lady's entire life changed because of what she saw in herself and the way she viewed herself. Our teachers developed incredibly deep relationships with our kids. They were able to tutor their teaching to individual kids because of the relationships that they created and how well they knew them. The students knew that the teachers were motivated to that the teachers pushed them not for their own motivation, not for the teacher's benefit, but for the students' benefit. The students wanted to achieve for the teachers, and the importance of the EOC was reiterated through the entire staff in a common message. Creating test groups was one of the most critical things we did. The prediction factor that I told you that the teachers assigned, we looked at it. It was based on personal knowledge of the students' test-taking skills, their attitude, and their knowledge of the content. I thoroughly reviewed that along with modification requirements, mobility status, assessment data, all the data I had available, created test groups. I didn't then say, this is it. I took these test groups back to the teachers. I wanted the teachers to own this thing. Took this back to the teachers, go over it again. We identified this kid can't stand this kid and they're just gonna throw there and there. We redid it again, okay? Until we came up with the test groups that were optimal. We focused a lot on environment and comfort of the students, and this actually was very hard for us to do, but a lot of people worked overtime to make that happen. We assigned proctors based on the students' needs. We specifically looked at our non-highly mobile target kids, and we identified them as the ones that really needed to be proctored by their own teacher. Okay? The kids that are gonna pass, they can be proctored by anybody, okay? And so we identified proctors strategically. We held a rally and we encouraged them. Mr. Greip committed $25 gift card for Proficient. He's a poor man, and students were, we challenged them to beat Springdale, Har-ber, Southwest. Go show your stuff, show them what you can do. The importance of attendance. The students knew we believed in them. They knew we knew they could do it. And then group incentives were promised. All these kids want to do is go to Silver Dollar City. Don't ask me why. One way or another, I'm going to find $4,000 this year and take these kids to Silver Dollar City. The one thing I want to say about the group incentive is it was not just for the test takers. We presented this as this is a school effort. Even if you're not taking the EOC, you can help somebody that is. So if you're part of helping us successful, whatever we do as a group, you'll go with us. Test day was counting down and anticipated. Incredible amount of support from the business world. I worked to get donations, and we served breakfast and lunch to all of our kids. I know that's not reasonable for y'all, but they just need to know we took care of them. We made them feel special. They got to watch us work very hard. I don't think I've ever physically sweated as hard as I did on the days of the EOC. And that gave them the idea, hey, we're all going to work hard to succeed together. It became a positive event, not fun, no one liked it, but a positive event. Okay, the results. First day of school, kids show up. What did I make on the EOC? Like, hello, how was your show? What did I make on the EOC? You know, they were so, we won't tell them. We're waiting for the rally. We're waiting for the celebration. No, most of them don't. And so, and our momentum is established for this year. So, sorry for the fast talk.
We just thought it would be a great way to begin the day. We're looking at ACCEP. We have great things going on. This is just one of the great things going on in this district. And so we are a PLC together to learn from each other and share. And so that's what we wanted to do as we started the day. Thank you both very much.